Hello and welcome everybody. Janet Beckers here, and I'm really excited to welcome you, to introduce you to my wonderful friend and guest here, Emma Franklin Bell. Hi Emma.
Hi Janet, so great to be here. Really looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah, me too, me too. We've got some really fantastic, really practical steps for you to take today, everybody that's listening. And we're going to be sort of breaking this into two parts. One, which is going to be our get out your pens and start writing. We're going to be talking about content, creating content and getting it out there to represent your brand, and a really unique way that Emma has developed to help you to be able to really consistently get your authentic voice through whatever medium you're using. So I'm really excited to spend some time diving into these different connection styles. So we're going to spend some time doing that, but we're also going to dive into the mindset of what it takes to be the person that really stands out and builds a business. And because Emma has some wonderful characteristics that I would love you to be able to do. I just want to bottle it up and we can have essence of Emma that I could give to you so that you can really model these characteristics. So without being able to bottle up Emma, we're going to dive into those unique things that you can be modeling yourself. So we're going to split it into two. What does it take to do it? And then how do you get your message out there? So
sounds good.
Very exciting. Very exciting. So
yes.
Emma, to start with, tell us who is it that you help and how do you do that?
I help women who are generally in the businesses that help transform lives and change lives. So that's coaches, healers, therapists, practitioners, service-based women. And I help them to unlock their signature ideas and then amplify that. So, and using, mediums that are online that we know about, like video and audio and interviews and written word and book writing. So anything that is going to, take the magic out and then amplify it out to those people who need it. That's what's most important. Not to everybody, but to the people that need to have those messages land for them. So that's the work that I do with women, and it's incredibly fulfilling work.
Yeah, and I love how you just said, take that the magic out and amplify it. That is such a beautiful way of putting that. And I love how you've really specialized in getting the message, the way that people communicate, that content of getting it out there. Because that's the thing, is there's so many people, we work with very, very similar people, and there are so many people who are absolutely brilliant at what they do, really, really good, but they can't communicate it properly. So nobody gets to know.
Yeah, that's right. And so what I've found is that, the magic and the message is one thing, but then you can have people who've already discovered that, they know what they want to say, and it's the process of how can I say it? How can I communicate that? And I mean, it was Seth Godin who a few years ago coined the term the connection economy. Right. And he talked about certain things, all sorts of things to do with that. But he talked about how, that media is now optional. People can choose what they're going to look at. Is it video? Is it podcasts? It's not just the old days where everybody had the TV and you were kind of locked into whatever channel.
Yeah, right.
So it's incredibly optional. It's curated. And also the fact, in terms of connection, like I said, about appealing to the people who need your work now, it is about the fact that the mass market, he also said the mass market is no longer important. What is important is, as he said, getting to the edges, of what's important. And then he also said that it's work that matters. So it needs to be, not content for content's sake, but it needs to be what matters. Yes. And, that needs to be obviously what matters to you, but also so that it's powerful and it pulls you forward on purpose, but also that it matters to the people that you're working with to help and transform them.
Oh, I love it. That was so beautifully said. I mean, just Seth's work, I've incorporated quite a bit of his work too, because he's done a lot of work on tribes. I love the way that he can sort of, really create that language around it as well, which is brilliant. So that's really, really good points that, you're not just being limited to the one medium now. So it's around that connection to the right people. So perfect.
Yes.
So before we dive into how people can connect and how can they be doing it authentically, I want to just dive in a little bit into why are you doing what you're doing now? Like, what's your backstory that means that you can say with total confidence, you know what, I can help you do this and I can help you get results. So just give us a little bit of a background on you in business and why you're actually doing this and why you're doing it now.
Sure. Well, I mean, I suppose I've been connecting with audiences since I was 7, and since I first decided that performance-based stuff and performing arts was what I wanted to do. And then after I did my training, which we might touch on, I then opened studios. So in performing arts, in ballet. So the whole area of being able to connect with the students, connect with the teachers, connect with the parents, connect with new potential. You've got, when you're managing a studio, and this can go for any studio because I've worked with martial arts studios and yoga studios, different studio types. You, especially with children's based studios, you're talking to 2 target markets, of course, minors, and you're also talking to their parents. So, and then you're managing the expectations of them and the teachers. So the whole area of communication, and then that was what I did my degree in, because I think communication has always been this fascinating piece to me. It's the glue. It really sits at the core of everything, because if you can connect and communicate to any of your publics, and you can then share whatever it is you're doing, whether you're doing the ballet classes or whether you're talking about the latest research in some medical thing, it's the communication that you need to be utilizing. And so how you're doing that, how you're connecting with people, how you're illustrating it, and so whether it was in practical terms, connecting with an audience and having that in intensity of holding an audience in that way, or running studios and connecting with people day to day on practical levels, hundreds of people coming through a studio every week that you're dealing with. This whole piece. And also when you're running studios like that, where it can be quite intense, and people they're very emotional in children's based work. So you are managing a lot of emotions, and you have to be very nuanced and very careful with how you, and sensitive to people. So so it's just always been a fascinating art to me, this communication connection piece.
Yeah, I love it. And that's actually been one of the lovely things that I've enjoyed in the last few months, because Emma and I have been, Emma's been working with me in the Accelerator program to go, I'm ready to level it up to the next. I'm ready to take it to the next level. So let's really work on what those core things are that is so unique to your story that other people don't have. And it's been lovely really seeing you own that, this connection, this communication, I have been doing it all my life. And it's been really lovely to see you, you've always done it, but to totally own it as, this is mine, and then create your own language, your own systems, everything very, very quickly around that. Not because you are, you're a walking, a real example of that, walking and talking the connection in everything that you're doing in your life. So now, one of the things that I really wanted to be able to bottle up, to be able to, this is the essence of Emma that I want people to be able to see, is one of the things that I've really come to notice after having worked now personally with hundreds of people in a close environment and thousands mentoring and coaching people in bigger programs, is there's certain characteristics to the people who have the grit to keep on going, to just, keep on turning up, keep on working towards it, that get that success. And you, Emma, I've recognized this in you right from the beginning of, just getting on, just doing the work, not knocking back. And one of those things I've really noticed is if you've got some kind of discipline that you have had to master in your personal life, whether it is, as we were talking earlier, whether it might be around learning a musical instrument but aiming for expertise, or very often I'm seeing it is in people who have done some kind of sport, where whether they're even if they're not competing professionally, they are approaching it with the discipline of somebody who wants to get really, really good at what they're doing. And so I love it when I talk to somebody and they'll show me that they've got a background to do with some kind of sport and some kind of expertise in that, because I know that they are going to have certain mental characteristics that make you unstoppable in business. So I'd like to just dive into those a little bit before we dive into the content of around connections, because I think this is going to be one of those things that means that the people who, when they are going out and connecting, that they can really keep that presence up, that they can continue to communicate as well. So yes. One of those, we were talking about this just before we hit record, and so I thought it would be really interesting if we just talk about your background as a performer and the discipline that you had to learn. Let's have a look at, first of all, what is it that you learned from that time in your life, the things that you learned that you can see now that you implement in your day-to-day business?
Yeah, well, thanks for that, Janet, and thanks for also reminding me that I, came up with the distilled concept, about this connection stuff while working with you, and that's, absolutely true. I think sometimes when you work with mentors, they're able to pull out sort of treasures from you that you didn't quite see. So I was doing the stuff, but then you've helped me draw it out and be more distinctive with it. So that's really good. But when so to the mindsets, I think what was really interesting for me was that, at 7, which was quite late actually when it comes to dance, I was, dancing around the lounge room, and then Mum was over me kicking things. So she took me to lessons, and, very quickly I excelled, and it was that, you needed to be doing exams and a Stedfords and training 25 hours a week and having private lessons in the morning before school at 6:30 a.m. And I think as a youngster, I went with it. I loved the dance, and I loved the progress, and I loved what I was doing. And teachers were in the 90s quite strict, and
right.
And things have changed a bit in the industry now, but the old days, they were quite strict, So I think it was also whenever you had a coach too, the coaching kind of mentality was that you wanted to not disappoint your coach, and
right.
And so there was, and especially as a young person, 7, 9, 10, 12, 13, etc., you are really, really locked into the connection that you have with that coach, and they develop you, and the bond is very strong. So so you'll always remember these key figures that sort of peppered through your career. And so those foundations were sort of, the mindset foundations were laid down without me really choosing to do that. And you would see many kids as you get older who would drop out for certain reasons. But I think, yes, if it appealed to you, these mindsets of delayed gratification, teamwork, discipline, you're only as good as your last performance, the personal best over competing really with others. The others sort of raise the bar, so you will always be seeing what peers are able to achieve, but then it always comes back to the focus of, well, can I perfect that turn more? Can I perfect that arabesque more, or whatever? And then because I was a Stedford student, I was therefore performing, every few weeks all around New South Wales, and I think that was really, really good to get over things like stage fright. It was kind of exposure therapy, so if you had any of those things, you just you just did it. You just moved through and you just did it. And I enjoyed it. If I didn't enjoy it and love it, then Mum would have said, "Do you want to do this anymore?" Because she was not a stage mum. She didn't even know the bun or anything. She wasn't like that at all. And so it was always driven by me. It was always driven by me on, and I want to do it. So I think those disciplines were those core sort of old school, strong, strident, bold sort of disciplines that were expected in your mindset. And then I think you then carried those out, and I taught for 5 years. So then I carried those into my students. And then I carried them into business, and I still continue with those today. And I think, and again, it's like a manifesto. You don't really realise you're doing it. But yes, other people who I've met who have done sport or dance to the same level, they have similar mindsets. And I think that the resilience, the long game thinking, the personal best idea, realising sort of the holistic stuff, that the hurdles. Someone said to me once that, a step back or a setback is like you do 2 steps forward and one step back.
Yeah.
And she said, I just see that as a cha-cha. And I thought,
I love it.
Yeah. So it's kind of, because it's almost like, you will have those hurdles, you will have like things that you experiment with all the time, that won't work. And then, yes, somehow it's the resilience of the mindset that pulls you forward, which must mean that there's an overriding passion, or as people call it, purpose or why, that maybe is stronger. Because what's funny is you don't think about giving up. You might evolve, but you don't. It must be like if you have a really great, strong marriage that you've been in for 40 years, the fight that you have doesn't mean that you leave the marriage. There's something stronger that leads people forward. So I think it's similar.
Yeah.
And
I think, and I've actually got some tips for people if they're thinking about how do I actually do that if I haven't had that background. Because one thing that I, as an example, so people can see what does it look like in action. I know when we were, for the last few months, because Emma's just been, this is the task to do, implements it, and then this is the result that I got. Now, one of those was, okay, well, I think I may, this may be my focus. You did a survey that was in a particular niche. Yes. And so you did it beautifully. Did the survey perfectly. You followed up with a training webinar to really see how it went. And after all of that work and that investment of time and money, at the end of it, you went, you know what? I actually don't think this is going to work. They're not really invested enough.
Yes.
You know, this is always going to be a little bit hard. Now, I know just from experience of working with so many people that for a lot of people, that would have gutted their confidence a lot. And it would have been very difficult. They would have had to really draw on a lot of resources, internal resources, to have the confidence in themselves again to go out and start again. Whereas you just sort of took a blow, went, oh, I am so disappointed about that. And then, but, you know, and went, okay, but that's all right. I've learned from that. This is the next step. Like that dust, you know, it doesn't mean that you don't go, oh.
Oh, yeah, and totally frustrating, and you have a crap day and you might say, oh, you know, I can't be bothered today with any of it. I'm just going to go to the beach or something.
Yeah.
I think you have to, I mean, I'm very about the self-care, and I talk to my clients about all the self-care stuff because I think you do have to acknowledge, you know, you do have to acknowledge that it's not all sunshine and roses.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's kind of the Jack in the Box thing, isn't it? It's the Jack in the Box that the next day you just go through your paces again.
Absolutely, you just get up and do it. And so for people who are thinking, well, that's great, Emma's had that, you know, from quite young, and I have been noticing with quite a few of my clients, the ones that, you know, every client has the potential to really create what they're going to do. Just some people can do it fast, and other people will take longer. And it's very often it's that grit, that ability to take the knock and get back up with confidence and keep the momentum going is the big difference. And so a few years ago, I can remember, Tiff, if you're listening to this, hello, Tiff. Tiff was one of my clients a few years ago who was an athlete. And I was saying to her, Tiff, I just want to bottle up this grit, you know, this resilience that you've got. And I know that it comes from you having been an athlete for so many years. And so we used to joke when I would say to her, oh, I'm an athlete too. And I wasn't, you know. But I thought, you know what, so for people who are thinking, can you do this? I decided after with Tiff, and so Tiff, I'll have to let Tiff know that I've mentioned her a few times, Tiffany Micah, awesome woman, is I thought, you know what, I'm going to see if I can start to, even though I've got a lot of that already, I'm going to see if I can actually make this a default by channeling what I'm recognizing in other people who have been brought up in that way. And so the challenge to you is to choose one thing, whether it's going to be walking, running, swimming, whatever it is. It could be an instrument. It could be art. It could be a particular hobby. It doesn't matter. What's important is it's something that you want to get good at. And then choose to just start off small. But it's the discipline of going, for example, I decided I was going to get good at swimming. So found a group of friends. They get up at 5 a.m. like to meet. So, you know, that was the big thing. So can I do that once a week? Can I do it twice a week? Just starting those little tiny things, and every time you do it, you just recognize what you are doing and tell yourself, you know what? I'm resilient. I have got the discipline. And every single time you are doing that, starting off that small, and then when you do have the times when you don't get up, recognize that, you know what? I didn't demonstrate that particular discipline. Or doing what I said I'm going to do. Yes,
and incremental growth. I think what's really interesting there that you mention is the incremental growth. Absolutely. You don't go from nothing to, okay, I'm going to do 5 days a week at 5 a.m. Yeah. In my view, you could do it, but I think that it's hard to sustain it. You know, you might be able to do that for a month, but it's the sustaining long term. So I always talk about, you know, with clients, especially if they're wanting to write a book or something and they're not going to do a sort of a hot-housed way of doing it. They want to just do it over the next 6 months or something. It's the incremental growth. So if you sit down and say, oh, okay, you've got to write 5,000 words, it won't work. But you can do, you know, 100 words and then 200 and 300 and it builds up. So I think, with any disciplinary practice that you're going to take on, and make sure you enjoy it, make sure it's something that's fun for you. But then just do it once a week, and then maybe do it twice a week. And
absolutely. Yeah. And so like now it's every single day. It's either swimming or running or gym or training for something else or art. The whole lot. It's incremental. It becomes normal. Now, the reason I want to mention this, and we'll move over to the next topic now to segue, is the reason I want to mention this is Emma's specialty is helping you to get your message out there by connecting through content, through communication. That takes a level of discipline, because you want to have consistency. You want to be not just, hey, here I am, and then they go, where did she go? Like, there was somebody who I really connected with 6 months ago, but I haven't seen anything since. You're going to have that discipline to be able to implement and to be able to approach it in a way of, can I be a better connector? Can I communicate better? So that's why I wanted to take that time talking about this. Plus also, it's just so wonderful for you to get just for you to be able to see those little nuances in a mindset that can really make the difference for you to be able to create success in your business. So now I'll move over. Now, first of all, let's just get clear on the different connection mediums. So what are the ways that people can connect when we're talking about people who are in a business where they help create transformation for people? So what sort of medium do you help people with, and what are the ones that people can be using?
So the mediums that you'll probably see everywhere are the channels that you would have heard of. So when it comes to audio, it's podcasting, it's MP3s, it's anything to do with audio. When it's video, it can be live, it can be webinar, it can be pre-recorded, anything like that. And then you've got written word, like you've got blogging, you've got guest articles. If you want to go further than that, you've got books. You've then got all the stuff to do with social media. So all your sort of daily work, your daily posts, and those sorts of things, all to do with social. So you've got these different mediums. But what intimidates people quite a bit is, A, do I need to be doing all of it? And B, I don't really feel natural. I don't really feel like me. I don't really feel confident to just rock up there and be doing what they've told me to do. You've just got to get on a Facebook Live, or you've got to start a podcast, or you've got to write, a top 10 tips blog or something. So I think in the past, this broad speaking stuff, broad brushed stuff about just, it doesn't matter, just get out there, just do the stuff, can now be approached in a much more sophisticated way, which is where I'm saying that you're aware of all the channels and all the mediums, and then your approach and how you're going to do the communication is actually about the connection style that is the most in sync with your personality and your whole all the characteristics of you.
That's fantastic, and I love that you've covered that there are so many different mediums. And when you mentioned at the beginning, when you were talking about what Seth Godin's work about the connection economy is, it's not that everybody is just tied into watching the television now. All of these different mediums are available. So the first thing you said was people saying, do I need to do all of them? What's your thoughts on that?
My thoughts are that you want to do the ones that feel the most natural to you, because otherwise you'll fall off the bandwagon. Yes. So if you fancy having your own podcast, and you give it a go and you learn the ropes and you do it, and it feels really good and really solid and really like what you need to be doing, you will keep on doing it. You'll evolve and morph, but you'll keep on doing it.
Yeah.
But if you've heard that it's the latest marketing thing and there's 500,000, there's 500,000 or something on the iTunes apps, and you need to be getting on there and doing it, and it's kind of an external thing, and you start it and you do it and you actually don't like interviewing, you don't like the whole techie setup of you've got to have the mic or something, and you do a few and you're great and you do about a dozen, and then you start to drop off, then you get annoyed and you get resentful and you think, well, why am I doing this? And some of it will be those foundational mindsets of just get on the bandwagon and do it. But other pieces of the puzzle can be, I think, that it's not intrinsic really to you. And so you might love podcasts, but you actually need to be a guest on them. So you might like voicing. Yeah, that you might need to be either getting someone or yourself or an assistant to be going through all those 500,000 and finding the ones that are your people and your that would be great for you, and lining up an interview a week, on podcasts.
Yeah.
So it's what's the approach? Same with video. Yes, it's great to be doing all the video and everyone talks about live and everything else. But if you're holding yourself back and you're not moving forward because whenever it comes to live you just can't do it, then doing pre-recorded videos and maybe batching those as a way of doing video is going to be better. And then with time, you might think, yeah, I'm really in my groove with this now. I've been doing that for a year. I think I could really get into live. I feel comfortable.
Yeah.
Or it could even be, if you're more of, say, an advocate type connector style, that you actually want to be on video, but you want to be interviewing. Just so there's a little bit of space between the intensity of just you on video.
Excellent.
In many ways. Yeah.
I love that distinction. So it's not a matter of, there may be a matter of, well, you know what, there's some medium, I'm just not even going to go there yet. Yeah. But there's also within each medium, you can work with what your particular strengths are. So and this is where I also see that a lot of people will go wrong, where they'll go, well, all right, so I know if I'm, for example, going to be doing video, that I must be doing sales videos, live videos, a video podcast. I've got to be doing the formula. Whereas, as we'll talk about in a minute, once you're super clear on what's unique about you and your natural way of doing things, you can own your particular way of doing it. So you're working within what works, but you're creating your own formula. And that's where you get to be in your zone of genius, and it becomes very, very easy.
Yes.
Yeah, because like, for example, I use video all the time. I could have chosen to make this podcast only audio. Now, on iTunes, it is audio. But we have it on everywhere else, it's on video. And the reason I've chosen to do that when most people don't is I love seeing the person's face, because I work very well off people's cues, off their body language, and can then perhaps pick up things that I can be asking that I may not have picked up if it was just through audio. And so that's because that's something I do easily. So use that medium in that particular way. When I tried just doing it audio, I felt like that there was just something missing. Whereas other people, that could be a distraction. So
yes, yeah. And I think also too that, especially if you're starting out, trying to do all the stuff all at once is just too overwhelming. I think,
absolutely.
You want to own it, you want to feel good, and then you can branch out. And it's the same, people will sort of talk about, blogging and that sort of stuff, and should I blog, and writing is the pain or whatever. Some people say this. And then they write these beautiful posts in their social media. So they don't even realize that they're sort of doing a lot in the written word, because they've sort of programmed themselves to think, oh, well, that's got to be about articles and blogs. And then they do these fantastic, maybe a couple of 100 words under a social post.
Yeah.
So that's probably feeling more connected. So is there a way of, if you do one of those every couple of days, you might find that they all have a similar theme if you're, talking about the same message, that you can, collect those posts over a week, and you might find you've got 600 words, and then you can edit it, and you can say, my musings from the week, or my tips from the week, and you don't even, there's a lot of great written content that just needs to be tightened up a little bit on people's social posts.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, and in terms of people for action taking here, we've already given you a few things that you can be doing now. You know, Emma's just given already some great ideas, and that's a lovely one for people who may be saying, you know, putting words out there on social media, because for them it's, I'm just talking to friends.
Yes.
It doesn't, they're finding it easier to do it is, can you repurpose that? And I love that idea of musings for the week.
Musings, yes. And often,
newsletter.
That's right. And you see, I think people often as well, when they're socially interacting with their social media and they do a post and then they're sort of doing a musing or something, you know, they're often relaxed. You know, you're often on the couch or you're you know, at the cafe or something. So you are feeling more connected and you are feeling sort of in the zone. Whereas I think sometimes for people, environment has a lot to do with it. And so if they open the laptop and open a blank page, blog, you know, and it feels all very worky, they're like, oh, what am I going to say?
Yeah.
So it's all about changing all that up, you know, and I think moving forward, this is how we can see that we can be, you know, pulling out content in all different ways.
And giving yourself permission to do it in your way. So now let's just go over into the last part that we'll be doing today, which is looking at how do you find your unique connection style? And this is what I've just absolutely loved watching Emma create, because once you sort of like totally owned, you know what, I am really good at connection and helping other people with connection, you then very quickly were able to put a great framework together to really help people, because it was all there. And so I just, you know, I love what you've done. I've gone through it myself and gone, yes, you're spot on. It's like you're reading my mind. So that's what I know everybody here is going to listen. So first of all, where can people go so they can do this quiz that you've created to be able to identify their own unique connection style, and the training that goes with it? The training's really good. The videos that you've got to really help you understand it are perfect. So where will people go? And then we're going to do a bit of an intro on that.
Yeah, so you can jump over to emmafranklinbell.com/quiz. So that's simple, just my name /quiz. And the connection styles, I kind of meditated on all of this, because over the years doing one-to-one work with people, you know, on their books, on their content, on their businesses, I could see that with the rise of needing to be getting out there more and amplifying ourselves more, I was seeing things that hold people back. And then I was also seeing that people seem to have different approaches. They had different their own way, and they would lean into certain styles more. And so so rather than this, again, broadly speaking, do video, do audio, but instead thinking about, okay, well, if I really own my style. So I worked out that there are 5 styles, and I've come up with these.
Yep.
And that is trusted advisor, storyteller, provocateur, advocate, and inspirer. So, I mean, they're fairly sort of descriptive in their titles of what they are. But, in essence, I could see that, you know, and you'll start to see it even with people that you say follow or read authors' books, and then you see them online. You'll see that people, we all have all of them in us, and you'll lean into certain things when you need to. So if you're talking about data, you might lean more into the trusted advisor role. But in essence, you have a primary, and that primary style is what you feel most comfortable in.
Excellent.
Yes, you don't feel held back. You don't feel, you know, like trying to be someone that you're really not, you know. So there's all that sort of stuff. And obviously trusted advisor is someone who feels very comfortable in research, in data, in case studies, and obviously, you know, doing PowerPoints or reading things from books or being interviewed by people on information, you know, often academics and people like this. That trusted advisor is really strong and they feel really comfortable in that. Storyteller, obviously, people who draw on their own stories, client stories, case studies, even things like legends, myths, fables to illustrate points.
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah, so if you were talking about a mindset piece, or you were talking, helping a client through something, you might refer to, to some, tortoise and the hare, some little fable that we're all privy to knowing about, and the little lessons in that.
Oh, and I love it when people can communicate that way. Like I really am drawn to the storyteller type. When I did your quiz, I did not come out as the storyteller. And I don't think it's something that I naturally do myself. But when I am exposed to somebody who is a storyteller,
yes,
I'm just mesmerized. Like I follow them. I love them. So
yes,
if they're telling their story. So that's a great one, the storyteller.
Yeah, and we all love stories because, our structure and our narrative, hero's journey and that. So we storytelling is one thing that we need to be drawing in. And what's interesting is you can get confident by also drawing from the other styles. So sometimes I'll talk to clients who say are doing work as meditation teachers or something, and they want to go into corporate, and they will say, in a corporate setting, I need to be sort of sounding, even though I need to be sounding more credible. I need to be sounding more like what they understand.
Yeah.
So that's where you can turn to the trusted advisor kind of style, and that's where you can draw on and say, okay, I'm an inspirer, but I actually need to draw on some of those attributes. So I'm going to look at the benefits of meditation. I'm going to look at some of these research studies, and so I can be talking to people who I want to be talking to, and I can give them some of the messaging that they will appreciate and want. So
excellent.
Yeah, and so you can draw on them. Provocateur, obviously, people who are bold and into progress. You'll see this with movements. People who sort of they're just going to call BS on things. They're straight to the point, and that is one where people can feel like they can feel held back. And should I be saying this? This is really me. That's about unleashing, and becoming more confident in standing your ground,
sort of owning that kind of rebel sort of
owning it. Yeah. Advocate, which is me, is the person who shines the spotlight on others. That's why I love doing podcast interviews. That's why I love working with clients and drawing them out. So for me, it's always, drawing out things, lifting things up, finding the truth, all of that stuff. The inspirer is, charismatic, and they lift our energy. They drive us forward with their, joy and presence of the you can do it. It's possible for you. You can do it. So, so all of them, and that's why if you were going to do a presentation, and it was some sort of audience that, after dinner or something, and they wanted to be lifted up, you would say, I think I need to draw on that inspirer. I'm going to read a bit about that, and I'm going to take my trusted advisor, but I'm also going to inject some of the inspirer qualities. So, so those are 5.
Out, it was probably like, I'm sure if you had a percentage, it would probably be like a 9 out of 10. She hits those inspirer ones, because they just, the quiz that you went through, and I do find with mine, even though I definitely draw on, the advocate is a huge one, because I love other people's stories. But that whole thing of, I believe in you, I believe in you, I believe, and I know you can do this. I'm here for you, baby. I'm going to stick with you until you can do it, because I know you can. That's the inspirer that comes out. So that's, that was, it was actually quite affirming to do your quiz and to see the way that you describe it, because it allows you to go, well, there is still, there's meat behind the this inspiration story. There is still incredibly still valid. It doesn't, because sometimes as the person who is the inspirer, sometimes you can think, sure, I've motivated you, but I'm really clever too.
Yes, and that's right, and that's why in the when you go through and do the quiz, which is quick, it's only 6 questions, and you go through. It'd be great over time to actually develop it and make it more meaty and longer.
Yeah.
That'd be really interesting. But so it's a quick quiz, and then I do talk about a bit later on about visibility blocks, and so there are things that can come up against these quiz styles. It's not like, oh great, I'm the inspirer, that's what I do, and I go out and I'm all into it and you can do it and everything and I feel great. You will come up against the blocks that are associated with that connector style, and it's probably things that you've noticed throughout your whole life, like as you're saying, will people think there's enough substance behind my joyful way of operating, and so yes, you're able to then break down those blocks by drawing on elements that prove that that's not not the case.
And I love it. So I really do highly recommend everybody goes and does the quiz. It's quite quick but incredibly insightful, and as Emma's talked about, not only does she talk about what your strengths are, she then talks about your visibility blocks specific to what your connection style is. Really, really useful. Very, very clever. So if you go to emmafranklinbell.com/quiz, you will be able to do that. Now, if you're listening to this on the audio on iTunes, first of all, you've got to come over to the page to see this beautiful radiant smile. And also we will have some show notes there for you, and I'll have the links there so that you can go and do the quiz. And one of the things that we're trialing at the moment with our podcasting is, instead of writing a long article, I'm actually putting a worksheet for you to go out. So we'll be putting out a worksheet, not on the quiz, of course, because everybody can get that from there, but we'll be putting that there. That's going to be guiding you through a couple of things. And I think one of the things that we'll probably do is how you can get that mindset that's going to allow you to be visible. Some tasks that you can be doing to help you prep to get that mindset, to be able to get visible, so that when you know what your connection type is, that you're going to be able to go out there with confidence and totally nail it, baby, because I know you can do it.
Yes, sounds great. Sounds really, really good.
Yeah, so we'll have all of that there for you. So we've covered a lot of topics today, but it's just such a great opportunity. This is why I love doing the podcast, because if we just wanted to say to you, okay, here are the different mediums that you could be using and here are connection types, sure, that would be something that we could just do in a simple article. But to have somebody where we can dive in and see what makes Emma tick and what is it that you can take away, that you can start modeling and implementing in your own approach to business, that's going to make it so much easier for you to get results, that is priceless. So I'm really grateful that you took the time to be able to break down how you've been able to take what you did from the discipline that you had to do to be, a fantastic performer at a high level, what that mindset is and how that then applies to what you're doing in business. I'm really grateful that we did that, because then it makes the rest of the things that we did so much more powerful for people to be able to go and implement. So thank you so much, Emma, and everybody that's listening here. Let's now think about what's one thing that people can do this week that's going to help them to start implement. Of course, we've got to go and do the quiz, but what else? Is there something that you can think that people can be doing this week that's going to help them to start getting more visible?
Yes, well, I think, thanks for that wrap up there, Janet. And also, I think it's a great point about when you say you can dive into these things in a more thorough way on the podcast. And that's what I would also say to people. The beauty of audio and video, once you get into your style and you move through any blocks and you realize this is what I want to do, I want to amplify my message, especially for women who are in those industries that transform lives, often your work is not a soundbite. Often it needs dialogue.
Yeah.
So that's why using audio and video as a medium and backing that argument up with, you know, your written work. And of course, if you're an advocate like me, you probably want to write a lot of books. But having the dialogue is really what helps you get your ideas landing and understood in people's hearts and minds in a much easier way, because they're hearing that dialogue. So in terms of a practical one, well, yes, you do the quiz, and then you might be quite enlightened. Oh, you know, this is the style that I am. And then think about, brainstorm the different practical ways that you think that connector style would approach being online and being more visible. And it could also mean offline presentations or talks at a networking group as well. So mainly talking about online, but there's also offline areas as well. So, you know, if you are the inspirer, you know, what could you be doing, and how could you be communicating it this week in a practical way? You know, so whatever your work is, could you be angling those posts this week in a more uplifted, inspirational way, as well as whatever you talk about, but in a slightly more, in a voice that is more inspirational, because that'll probably be feeling more in sync with you. Or if you're thinking that you want to do a pre-recorded video, you know, don't get stiff and think about what you should be doing. But, you know, if you're the provocateur, you know, maybe put on some music that gets you in the zone of how you really feel. And then when you do the pre-recorded video, just have that energy coming through a bit more. You know, don't go sublime to ridiculous, but just have that energy sort of behind what you're doing more, and you'll just start leaning into it more and more and more and more.
That's brilliant tips. And one last thing I do want to leave people with is, when you do go over and do the quiz from Emma, keep your eye open, because at the time of recording, Emma has a new book that will be coming out very, very soon about, what's the title?
It's Write Your First Non-Fiction Book, making it really clear. So it's about writing your first book that's non-fiction, coming out in August, and it's a book written off the back of all the work and material that I've done in groups and one-to-one with people who are writing their first non-fiction book. So it's great. It's practical, it's got exercises, and it takes you right through all the things you need to know to get your first book written.
Yeah, that is wonderful. That's wonderful. Thank you so much for your time today, Emma, and thank you everybody that's here. As always, the best thing that you can do is to give us some feedback. So go to Emma, you know, stalk her on social media. When you've done the quiz, just drop her an email and tell her, you know, just one thing that you have taken away today and an action step that you are doing. I would love to hear from you as well. So either drop me an email, leave a message, you know, on social media. Come and talk to me there. Tell me, what was it that, you know, something that you've taken action on, because honestly, that is the biggest thank you that we can get in return for putting, you know, taking the time to be able to share these stories with you. Is just knowing that it's helped you to do some action is priceless. So would love to hear from you. And if you are listening on iTunes, I would really appreciate if you would share that as a comment or a review, an honest thing like, what have you taken away? That would really help other people to be able to discover people like Emma as well. Okay, thank you so much everybody for taking the time to be here, and thank you so much, Emma. It's just been really inspiring.
Thanks, Janet. It was wonderful, really wonderful. Thank you.
Okay, bye.